Hi everybody, I'm Marcia Matson. I'm currently council member in Palmetto Bay. I was elected 4 years ago, and I'm running for re-election. And I want to thank Gary and Shelley so much for putting this event on. I remember 4 years ago it was exciting, and it's exciting again. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming out. It's great to see you, that you're interested in hearing what the candidates have to say. And it's wonderful. I'm really into democracy, and this is democracy to me. So a little bit of my background, and that is I am a resident of Palmetto Bay for 31 years. My house was destroyed by Hurricane Andrew back in 1992, and that's how I got involved in politics in Palmetto Bay, working with other residents, working with the county, thinking we got to have our own city. I was very much involved in the incorporation movement. I consider myself one of the founders. There's several other founders here who participated in making this the great municipality, the great village that it is. I'm a mother. I have 2 grown children, and my daughter is a clinical psychologist. She lives in San Diego, California. She went out to San Diego to go to school, and my is a businessman. He lives in Austin, Texas. And he lived here most of his life. Both my children went to our public schools all the way through from Coral Reef to Southwood to Palmetto High School. And then they went to the University of Miami and the University of Florida. So they're Florida grown and very successful. I spent many years, 22 years, teaching at the University of Miami. And I taught, guess what? Government. So I am practicing what I preached for many years. And I'm just thrilled to be able to contribute my experience and my knowledge to Palmetto Bay. It's a delight, it's a privilege to do that. So in terms of what I have done on council for 4 years, I have a card here that has my website on it, marciamatson.com. You can go there and see all of the things that I've done. I feel like I've been very productive, and I'll just give you some high points of what I've worked on. And that is, I promised when I campaigned 4 years ago that I would work on the zoning code downtown. And I worked very hard on that to reduce density and reduce heights. And we accomplished that. The council passed it, and we have what I consider a village-style development for the future in downtown. Another thing that I worked on, very proud of, is setting up the Neighborhood Protection Committee. And in fact, our hosts, Gary and Joe over here, and Bev over here, several people, and Jennifer are here tonight. They care very deeply about protecting neighborhoods. So I'm the council liaison for that. It was it's a terrific committee, and people go to that committee and talk about issues, and they follow through on it. And they succeeded in introducing the idea, and I passed a 45-foot height limit on development along US 1. Prior to that, it was much higher, so we got that passed. So I'm into moderate development, but not high-density development. And going out on the campaign trail as I am every day, day to day, almost every day, I hear that is one of the big issues among residents, which is we don't want high-density development. And I agree, absolutely. I have not voted for a single high-density development since I've been on council. So I'm proud of that. Another thing that I have worked on is initiating a program, a safety program for seniors. That's a grab bar program. And if you know any seniors, this program is still available. Palmetto Bay will reimburse a senior for putting grab bars in that person's bathroom as a safety measure. So it's a reimbursement of $500. And I think it's a great program for seniors and for their safety. Another thing that I worked on, and I'm very proud of, and will continue to work on it, is the environment. I sponsored, I developed the Resiliency Committee. And I intend to work on that committee, work with that committee to help protect Palmetto Bay for the future. In the future, we face a serious issue with sea level rise and climate change. We have a new committee that has residents who are very well qualified, and I'm looking forward to working on ideas about how we can protect Palmetto Bay with them. Let's see, some other issues that I've worked. Oh, okay, just in time. Okay, thank you, everybody, and I would appreciate you.
Mr. Jones, Russell Jones, District 3 candidate.
Hello? Thank you, sir. Good evening. My name is Russell Jones. Moved to Palmetto Bay in 2013 with my wife and my two beautiful daughters over here who are trying to hide. They're a little nervous, probably more than me. We moved here for a couple of reasons. We moved here, one, because at the time we lived in Homestead, and my wife was pregnant with my youngest daughter, and we wanted what I think everybody wants, right? We wanted to move into Palmetto Bay for schools. We wanted to move here for the pool, the bigger house, the yard, the family aspect of Palmetto Bay. And that's the same reason why I decided to run. Because over the years that I've been here, it's only been almost 1 out of 10 years, not nearly as long as many of you, I'm sure. But I've noticed things that I didn't like, right? I've noticed things that I wanted to change. And my personality, if you ask my parents, I'm one, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to get involved, right? I've been involved in things my entire life. In fact, I was a Boy Scout, I'm an Eagle Scout, excuse me. Once an Eagle, always an Eagle. And I'm still involved in Boy Scouts. I'm on the South Florida Council board, the executive board for the Boy Scouts. And why is that, right? It's because once I get involved in something, I see it to the end. So I'm 41 years old, right? I have 2 girls who do gymnastics, but I'm still involved in that because I believe in it, right? I'm also a business owner, right? I run a small business, it's a family business. We've had it since the early 80s. My father started it. We do low voltage, so we do fire alarm, security, access cameras, that kind of stuff. Been in that business now, since I was a little kid. We have a call center as well, so I was working in that call center when I was 15 years old and taking calls. So we run that business now. I've run it now full time since 2007. And during that time, I've learned a lot of different things. I've learned to run a business, to run, employees and grow the business. In fact, right now we're in Dade County, Broward County. We have an office in Atlanta. Right now we're trying to build buy a company in Atlanta. So we're rapidly expanding. That experience has taught me one thing: is you go in head first and you make things happen. You don't sit around, you don't wait for things. You make things happen. And so again, when I saw the opportunity to run, I thought to myself, now's the time, right? Now's better than ever, right? I think that it's very important that we keep Palmetto Bay for kids like this, right? We keep it the way it is. We keep it family oriented. We keep the parks, we expand the park. We make them better than they already are. We want these kids to grow up so when they're sitting in these seats, they're having these same thoughts. We don't want to go in the wrong direction. And not that Palmetto Bay is going in the completely wrong direction, but that's why I'm here, right? It's for them. Right? It's not even for me, it's for kids, it's for the next generation, and that's what I want to see happen. Now, about specifically, what would I like to see specifically? Well, I think everyone's number one issue, it's pretty good with it, huh? Traffic. I live in Melbourne, I live in District 3, traffic's a big issue. I think there's lots of things we can do, and it's on my website. We can have that conversation later, but there's lots of things we can do that I don't think we're doing well enough right now, right? Development, Marcia touched on it earlier. I don't think anybody wants a lot of development. In fact, single-family homes are why I moved to Palmetto Bay, right? To have that atmosphere, to have that family. I love that my kids can go outside and ride their bike in the street, and I don't have to worry about it, right? So I don't want to change that, but I do understand that development is part of life. And as part of moving things forward. So we may have to have some development. Doesn't mean we have to have, bad development. We have smart development. And lastly, one thing that I really kind of fond of is golf carts. I love taking my golf cart out, taking the kids. We go get ice cream at Maxwell's or Fried Baby. And, we enjoy that. I would love to see a more inclusive area for golf carts at our parks, golf cart parking. I don't know if any of you have been to the baseball field in Friendship that Cutler just finished. They have dedicated golf cart parking. I think that's awesome. It's family friendly things. It doesn't take up a lot of room, and it's things that we can get cars off the road, get our parks working for the people that already have cars. It's not going anywhere, but we need to make them more accessible. And I'm about to get called off here, so I'm just going to wrap it up. I haven't been to your door yet. I promise you I'm going to try to get to you. If not, I'll be at the table all night. Thank you very much.
Mr. Flynn, former Mayor Flynn.
It is my pleasure to be in front of you here today. And again, thank you, Father, for the prayer for those affected by Ian. We all remember Andrew. We all, that's the big elephant in the room tonight. Will we all be owning our homes next year with what's going to happen with flood and property insurance? So I think the legislature is probably going to be feeling pretty bad about the fact that they didn't do anything about it this last year. But we want to continue to work to do what we can for Palmetto Bay. I'd like to think that I've met all of you at some point here. I'd like to think that at some point I'm going to know quality. I'd like to think that I go door to door and I ask people what they remember or what they think. They think of low taxes. I invented what's called, I brought it to Palmetto Bay, government light. That's something I want to continue to keep here. We have a great area. We incorporated it knowing that we had a gem. We took over the parks. We took over our planning. And we've got a great relationship with county police. So you're asking, Gene, why are you running against? Well, because I want to get back to our core values. And when I say I want to get back to the core values, I don't want to look behind us. I want to continue to look forward. Because that was an excellent starting point. We had no ruts. We had our own. We had no debt. And we continue to start, and we continue to move forward. Parks. Parks are what makes us what we are. We're the village of parks. We took over Coral Reef Park, and any of you that were around when we took it over, we were faster than Miami Lakes. We actually got our parks in 18 months, where Miami Lakes, which was 18 months ahead of us, continued to work, and we're waiting on getting our parks. And we worked with the county to get our parks, the interlocals done, and take it over. And we had an army of people that moved in to clean up Coral Reef Park. Through working with our county commissioner at the time, Katie Sorensen, with impact fees that were waiting there for us, we enlarged Palmetto Bay Park from a little 5-acre prime park to what it is here today, which is one of a premier girls softball fields, great skate park, basketball courts, part of a great diverse park amenities. We worked with Miami-Dade County and the state of Florida through the Community Trust, Florida Trust. $3.719 million we got from Coos County. But we got that. We purchased a lot at no cost to the taxpayers. In fact, we will continue to work with South Florida Water Management. And they gave us, let's talk about the dirty little secret there. We got a $500,000 grant from them so that they could have an easement to get to their canal if they needed work. Well, you know what? That was a great deal for us based upon our great relationship. Because you know darn well, in our working relationship with our fellow government agencies, we were never going to deny them access to that canal if they needed it. But that was $500,000 additional that went in the thought. It's a gem. If you haven't been there, you need to go there. In fact, one of the things that I worked on was getting a funding and permission and a fine grant to go forward and put a lookout pier on there. Isn't that nice to think about? You can go down to Thalata and walk out on the water and have a little boardwalk. Unfortunately, I don't think that's happening. It should. And as your mayor, I'll make sure that happens. The woods. Environment has always been one of my key things. Pine Rocklands, protected area. I worked with our commissioners to get to the 168th Street property across from Dr. Henry Perrine Elementary set aside for, instead of going to county was going to surplus that land and put it on the high density development. We stopped that. But it's been sitting there for 4 years, and if it doesn't get worked on, we're going to lose that. We also need to get back on the 22 acres we saved. That is 22 acres of pine rockland down at the Palmetto Bay Village Center. And I'm the only candidate that's ever considered any plans to try to save that land. It's that important. And at one time, I couldn't get the votes, but maybe I can this time around. At one time, it sits on the B list to get from the Environmental Endangered Lands Program. It's a willing seller. And at one point, the seller was willing to work with us to get a grant to pay for 50% of it. We could have bought that land for $1.8 million, and poof, there goes the development they wanted to put there. So with that, we're going to have a great night tonight talking. I look forward to it. You know, great schools here in Palmetto Bay. My daughters went to Coral Reef, Southwood, and then they split off. One went to the magnet program at Coral Reef, where I participated with them with the agri-sciences program, and the other one was in the drama program. So anyway, looking forward to talking to you all tonight. But thank you.
Mr. Fiore.
Everybody hear me? It's great to be back here. You know, I stood in this spot 4 years ago, and I was asked 3 specific questions, and I believe I kept my promise on all 3. The first one was the former FPL property. Right? I promised to keep the zoning at 1 unit per acre, and I held steadfast to that. The other was the 485 condos on Old Cutler Road. I was asked that question. I said I will vote no if that comes up again. It did, and I voted no. And the last, was the downtown Palmetto Bay that Dr. Mattson spoke about. We, I give all my colleagues credit. We came up with a plan to keep the heights and the densities down, which was good. But I didn't introduce myself. Right? So, yeah, I've been on the council. Patrick Fiore, I was first elected to Palmetto Bay City Council in 2010 in a very spirited race against my very good friend here, Bev Gerald, not a dirty race, spirited race. And then was fortunate enough when there was another open seat in 2018 to run, and we were successful. So if we're successful this time, this will be my final time as your District 1 representative here in Palmetto Bay. As Mr. Jones said, my family and I moved here 15 years ago in 2007 for the schools and for the quality of life. And I say that my daughter went to both of my children went to Coral Reef High School. They were all day athletes. And my son went to Palmetto Middle School. And right now my daughter is an OBGYN who's delivered over 1,000 babies at the University of Texas Medical Center in San Antonio, and was just named to the Board of Trustees as a final year resident to the Texas Medical Association. My son-in-law is a captain in the Air Force. He's a flight surgeon. He's on the Blackburn Air Force Base. And my son works at Baptist Hospital in cardiac care telemetry unit, and he's finishing up his degree in ultrasound radiology. The reason I say that is, again, we moved here for the quality of life in the schools. And now I see later on in life the transformation of what occurred. Real quick, just some of the things that I want to highlight. One of my first acts when I was on the council this time, and again, with the conjunction of my colleagues, the first council and the second one, we did manage to lower permit fees for pools, decks, standby generators, fences. We lowered them by 25% and 5% on some minor stuff because I thought that was way too high for residents to pay. We did put aside $2 million for clean drinking water. Again, I thank all my colleagues that supported that because we do have, especially one neighborhood that is not, they're still on well water, but drinking water. I made a resolution to purchase a vacuum truck so that we can clean the drains, because drain cleaning, obviously, especially after the storm, you see how important it is. So this will pay for itself in 3 years, and I believe we're taking delivery on that pretty soon. I've hired additional police officers. We just hired an additional police officer last night in our final budget hearing, and we hired 2 others before, and I'm proud to say that yesterday I did receive the endorsement of the South Florida Policemen's Benevolent Association, so very happy about that. And another thing that was key to what I wanted to do was, many homeowners they have irregular lots, or they want to change their home, they have setbacks, they might want to put a shed. And in a lot of cases, many of our residents had to appear before the council, pay $3,200 to $3,500 at a public hearing. Now, again, with this past, with my colleagues, we were able to eliminate that. So now if you want to do something with your home, and it meets certain land development code criteria, 25% or 5%, you'll be able to do that administratively without paying for a public hearing. We also did the resolution to put the stop sign at 144 and 87. I'm told that's enough. Thank you very much.
And last but not least, our former mayor, just happened to be sitting here.
I have some notes, so I don't ramble on, because there's so many things I can say in 5 minutes. But first I want to thank concerned citizens Gary Shelley. Thank you for hosting tonight. I think this will be the only time we have this opportunity. I also want to recognize my sister Catherine Honey. I know she doesn't like it, but campaigning is hard on the candidate. It is equally hard on family members. So thank you, sister, for being here this evening. And a shout out to Valentina and Gabby, a future mayor, that are womaning my table. I appreciate that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Karen Cunningham, and I am your current mayor. And I'm running to continue the important work ahead that preserves the greatness of our village and prepares us for the future. I've spent the last 4 years, and I have not done this alone. I also want to make sure I recognize our Vice Mayor, Leanne Tellum, if you could stand for a moment. Steve Cody, thank you for joining us tonight. This is not something that can be accomplished by any one person, but I have spent the last 4 years focused on getting our village back on track by putting our fiscal house in order, which I think is extremely important, revamping our downtown code, which you heard about just a few moments ago, standing up against the Bigfoot of the county overreach, on issues that will impact our quality of life. We've worked with local businesses to assure their success here in the village, and prioritized, as you've heard previously, policy that will make us more sustainable. And most importantly, we have spent our money and our time focused on the issues that people talk about. Things that you have said you prioritize: public safety, sidewalks and streets and parks. And as I said before, I haven't done that alone. In addition to our village council, our manager, our staff, my colleagues, and actually many of you that are here in the room that have donated your time and talent. I do want to give a shout out, and I see our former vice mayor in the back, John Dubois, and the police officers that are here. Thank you for your service, and thank you for being here this evening. I tried to break this down into 4 areas, one being fiscal responsibility, which I spoke briefly about. This has been a very, very difficult time. I know it's been difficult for our residents, but it's also been difficult for our council in making decisions. We have taken very, very important steps, in my opinion, to make our village more fiscally sound and more responsive to our residents. Last night, we passed what I consider to be a legacy budget. We put money aside in reserves. We've created a maintenance fund for our public buildings, which we did not have. As one of my colleagues mentioned, we added a police officer and spent a tremendous amount of money dedicated to water quality and many other things that our residents have said are important to them. As I mentioned, it's not been an easy task getting there, but we have gotten there. Development, my colleagues have already mentioned the work that we did. As soon as I took oath as mayor, within a couple of months, we developed a process. We had over 20 meetings, and I know we have friends here tonight that spent a lot of time with us during those meetings. We brought down height and density from 8 stories to 5 stories. The number of units from 7,500 units to 2,500 units. We have, I think most importantly, put development where development belongs, and that's on the commercial corridor. We can't keep every developer from developing, but we have taken time, thoughtful time, in looking at applications, and I know one of my colleagues mentioned 2 of those applications. The Luxcom, that property, old FPL property, zoned 1 acre estates, and of course the 485, which we voted down the application, and I've taken several votes on the old Burger King property. I have stood firm in opposition to the county's plans for preempting our zoning, that's the RTZ that you've heard, and other initiatives that will negatively impact our quality of life. We've brought programming and partnerships to help our businesses thrive, with over 100 new businesses opening during the height of the pandemic, and I know we have some of those business owners here. We talk about infrastructure and environment. We have finally created a resiliency committee, and we have 5 dedicated residents that are going to spend their time helping our community become a greener, more resilient and sustainable village. There's other things I would love to discuss, and I hope they'll come up in the questions. I'm down to, I guess, in just a couple of seconds. Thank you so much for your time here this evening, and I'll look forward to asking or hearing from you and your questions and answering them. Thank you.
Okay, now, this is your time. The candidates are all going to come up, so I'll come on up. You're going to line up here. We're going to pass the mic. You get to ask questions. They get 1 minute. Now, this is not your time to make a political statement. This is your time to ask a legitimate question. That's all we want you to do. Ask a real question, and that's it. Who has a question? Do we have a question? Anybody? They know a minute. They know that. They have a minute. Anybody have a question? Sure.
Former Mayor Cutler, to be enjoying your life on the golf course. Why now are you coming back into the political arena? And if you had to say, I ask you to say, please, the 2 most important issues that face the village that you are unhappy with, and how would you do things differently in regards to those 2 issues?
What we also want to do is ask a question that they all can answer.
They all can answer. First of all, I think obviously we talked about the code being changed. Too few realize that when we inherited the code from Miami-Dade County, the downtown area could have been between 17 to 23,000 units. And wrap your head around that. We reduced it down to not 7,500, but 6,500, 5,400 then eventually. And then they say they've knocked it down. One of the first things I do is I get rid of the variance procedure that was put in after I left. The variance procedure was used to give back some of what they say was taken when the code was reduced. The variance procedure was allowed a medical building to go in on 0.95 acres. It's 72,000 square feet. It's 5 stories tall on what used to be 4 quarter-acre pieces of property. You have 1,000 square foot homes on it. So think about living next to that. Get rid of the variance procedure, and you won't have that coming.
Does anybody else want to address that?
Sure, I think the 2 major issues in Palmetto Bay are maintaining our quality of life. We live in a beautiful place, and we have to maintain that. That involves pushing back on high-density development. I will always do that. I do not believe in high-density development. And the other aspect is having a transparent, open council that maintains low taxes and is responsive to residents. I voted against the millage rate last night, and I voted against, was it last night? No, a couple of nights ago. I voted against, no, last night. Okay. Time flies when you're campaigning. I voted against the millage rate. I thought it was too high because we're all struggling with inflation. I think we need to live within our budget. I voted against the budget because I thought that it was not an appropriate budget. It was spending too much money on too much federal money, backfilling the budget. I think we should stay within our means, and we should use federal money for legacy projects, which are purchases of coastal property.
We'll just keep passing along?
Yeah.
Thank you, thanks. And I think we've highlighted some of these things, but definitely development. I think this council has done really an amazing job in making sure that development is on the commercial corridor and we decreased height density, as I've mentioned many times. We are under attack from the county. We are under attack from the county, from the big footprint of the county. The rapid transit zone was something I went up and spoke about more than one time. My colleague, a former colleague, former Mayor Gene, well, he was at the meeting. I did not hear you step up to speak in opposition to the RTZ. I think that's going to be extremely important. We have a collaboration with the mayors in the South Tate area that I think is also important. We don't agree on everything. We're looking at not Palmetto Bay, but the surrounding areas. We're talking about Cutler Bay that is slated for 4,500 new units in their downtown area. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to say the number one issue is the same issue I heard when I knocked on all those doors 12 years ago. Speeding and traffic through the village has to be slowed down. We did pass a large package of speed control devices, some speed tables, other police direct enforcement for that. And I think as others stated, is development. You know, we have to hope we held the line with the Luxcom property down here, and with the RTZ. We did mention the word carve out, I believe. We talked about that, and our commissioner did ask for that, it was voted down. But we can't have them infringing a half a mile in to our city, because there goes the rest of our quality of life, and we lose the fabric of this bedroom community.
So I'm going to kind of piggyback on pretty much, I think everybody's saying the same thing. I'm going to go two different things, right? I agree with most of those items, but I also want to say, this is my personal experience. Our schools, I think the village needs to work closer with our schools and highlight some of these amazing children that we have in the village, number one. Number two is traffic. Now, we all think traffic's a problem, right? But what are we really, truly doing about it? And I'm going to throw one more in there because I think it's important right now. It's public safety, right? I would love to see more police officers, more equipment, because let's face it, part of traffic is traffic control. So if you tie their hands, it's causing a problem as well. So those are that's more than one line, I think, but those are what I really believe in, and that's what I think will make this village better going forward.
Question? Anybody have a question? If you want to ask a question, you want to queue up, stand in line. Just hand it to the next person behind you. You can dance.
I had to do a war study.
Is it a question?
Yes, it is. You're gonna see. I promise. I had to do a war study in our canal system this past May, and out of the range for human safety and also marine life was E. coli, which is coming from our septic tanks, petroleum, which is coming from tire dust, and also the oil from cars, which is the urban runoff from the roads, and it was a high level of phosphorus, nitrogen, and low oxygenation level, which leads to the cyanobacteria that I've been documenting, as well as the fish kills. So my question is, going forward in the next year, what new initiatives could Palmetto Bay come up with in continuing to work with South Florida Water Management District, Durham Public Works, and our new roadways having the French drains instead of the style ones that go directly into canal, because everything is ending up in Biscayne Bay, as well as our septic tanks and conversions.
Hand it to Russ.
I'm sorry?
Hand it to Russ.
Thank you. So my house is on septic tank. One thing one of the reasons when I moved here, one of the things that I kind of got a little bit involved in because I knew it was going to be a problem. I would love to see the septic tanks issue resolved. I'd love Palmetto Bay to do more to try and get houses off the septic tanks. I'm on a canal. My septic tank is, I don't know, less than 100 feet from that canal. And I know that's a problem, but I have no other option at this point. So I love to see that addressed. What else can Palmetto Bay do? I mean, we have to work with the county. I know the county can be a pain sometimes. I've dealt with them myself, but we need to work with them to enforce some of the rules right there, and make sure that the things like the fertilizer ban that the county passed, make sure that's enforced. Because I mean, I can tell you right now, I haven't seen it enforced. I know it passed, but who's really, and making sure that no one's doing it. Yeah.
We got a plan for the future, and we got started with it. Again, what I say is I have an excellent rapport with the county, and we got to get back to that. We can't be filing lawsuits that aren't going anywhere with it. And I'm talking specifically about the one at 174 and 87th Avenue. That isn't even moving. Go check the docket. Nothing's happened in that case for months. But let's get in it. We got to get on the sewers. I lived in a house that was on septic tank here in Palmetto Bay. I now live on one in sewer. It cost me some money, but it's saving our environment. So we've got to work hard, and if you think you can just pay for that out of our own money, you're wrong, because it's going to be very expensive. Back in the mid-'80s, they were talking about a potential special taxing district to put those into. We just had $12.4 million given to us, which is one-time money. And what is done with it, it's backfilled, as Dr. Marsha Matson said. And the manager in that budget talked about how this budget would be 1.3 million in the red, but for that backfilled money, it should have been used for things like sewer and legacy projects. Dr. Matson, that's a prime example right there.
Thanks, Gene. Absolutely, I do agree with you. I advocated this gift from the federal government of $12.4 million going into a legacy project like buying coastal land. But I also talked about starting to move our septic tanks out and bringing in sewer lines. It's a very important thing for the health of the bay. And I just want to say thank you to Jennifer for being such a leader on canal issues. We now have a marine patrol. We are purchasing a boat to go down to take care of speeders because that is a problem on the canal. And we are now doing a survey with the South Florida Water Management District to determine what role we can play jointly on stopping canal erosion, especially in Coral Reef Park. So we have speed signs there now, and Jennifer keeps us all informed as to what's going on the canals, but that is a very important issue.
Thank you. As Jean pointed out, moving from septic to sewer is going to cost billions upon billions of dollars. One of the resolutions that we passed, we had the village manager take a feasibility study from the county just to go through it so that we, meaning the council, would be better informed moving forward. What we have done. I mentioned the resiliency component. We have a committee of folks, and I'm talking about some really skilled individuals under our Vice Mayor, Leanne Tellum, that'll be working to put together a sustainability plan for the village. We dedicated $2 million, and we did a survey, to move people off of well water. We're in the process right now. In October, we'll get the survey information back. If you're one of those folks, you'll want to pay attention to that. These are things that we want to focus on as we start to move forward, dedicating dollars and resources and people power to creating a plan for our village.
I'm just gonna kind of piggyback on what was said. What did we do? Yeah, we just put in our budget, I think $50,000 or $100,000 towards resiliency. We do have a resiliency committee. 5 select citizens were nominated to that, and I look forward to seeing their work. As was stated, we have the $2 million for clean drinking water out of the money that we got from the ARPA money. And also with the canals, we are working with South Florida Water Management District on canal erosion. And as Dr. Madsen said, we are in the process very close now to getting the police boat, which will also help with the people going too fast in the canals. Thank you.
Any more questions?
So quality of life has become a coin term that almost every person running for office has been using over the last 4, 5, 6 years. There is a definition of quality of life, and I'd be interested to see what your definition is, or is it just a coin term?
Quality of life. So, gonna harp back to it again. It's making sure that these roads are safe. My neighborhood has no sidewalks, right? And the sidewalks we do have are all destroyed. It's on my flyer. It's one of the things that I hate to walk around my neighborhood sometimes and see the condition of the sidewalks that are there. I know some of them are county issues, but we need to work with the county to get those fixed. Quality of life is not having speeders speed through your neighborhood. Quality of life is not having the traffic that takes you 45 minutes to get anywhere in the morning. Right? These are all quality of life issues that need to be resolved. Now, what will I do differently? Well, again, sidewalks being an issue, making sure that you can get out of your neighborhood in the morning. I know my oldest daughter here, who's playing on her phone all night. She's going to Southwood right now. I know we just changed the traffic pattern to get in and out of Southwood in the mornings. It's things like that can be done, that can be done on a macro scale that help improve everybody's quality of life, not just in certain areas, but in the entire village.
To me, quality of life is trying to protect, there's 2 tiers to it, trying to protect what you have, but not necessarily, you can't just put amber over our village and expect it to remain the same. You've got to make those changes necessary so that we're able to live here 50 years from now. And that means moving with the times. That means if you want our children here, we're all living in homes that many of us couldn't afford if we were buying them today. We bought them a lot earlier through Save Our Homes amendments. Our taxes are much lower than our neighbors that moved in this year or last year or even 5 years ago. You've got to make sure that we have places for our teachers and our workforce to live. I have a daughter that just became a special ed teacher. I hope that she can afford to live somewhere. And I see people shaking their head no. But these are quality of life issues. We can't just study issues. We've got to start having movement on things like the septic tanks, on things like sustainability.
Okay, I hear a lot about quality of life on the campaign trail, and absolutely this is something we want to preserve and also looking forward enhancing. So some of the issues with quality of life is people feel we live in a beautiful natural oasis. And this is something that I'm very interested in, is continuing to promote our environmental agenda and enhance it to make sure that our environment, our landscaping, our tree canopy. Recently, I was on the tree board as a council liaison, and we have a number of items in the budget that help protect our trees, especially pruning them and taking care of them the way they should have been taken care of for years. Another aspect is policing. We need to keep our crime rate down. We just hired another police officer in order to protect us and keep us safe. That's a very important aspect of quality of life. And another one is to keep our taxes low. I did vote against a millage rate that I thought it could have been lowered, and I think we can have this quality of life while not raising property tax.
Thank you. I think last night's budget reflects quality of life in the village. We focused on the things that the residents have said are important to them. We added an additional police officer. You said public safety was number one. We dedicated dollars to parks and recreational activities. That came in within the top three items that folks talked about that they said would enhance their quality of life. The sustainability, one of the things I forgot to say, we dedicated a full-time staff member, a resiliency coordinator. That's a big deal. We are a small city doing big things. Sidewalks, I heard one of my colleagues here mention, sidewalks, street paving, drain cleaning. These are things that we've enhanced in the budget, doubling and in some cases tripling the amount of money that we have spent in the past because you all said these things are important. So I think quality of life is your priorities, and then the proof is in the pudding. It's how we're spending money.
Yeah, I think quality of life, my definition, is what I stated when I was up here. I came here 15 years ago simply for that, and the results speak for themselves. But we have a quiet bedroom community, police protection, controlled development, and do everything we can to control speeding and traffic through the village. Many of the things that many of the other candidates stated, this all comes together under one umbrella. And again, we have a true gem of a municipality, and I have that in my card, and we want to keep it that way.
Anybody?
Each of you has said that you're against overdevelopment. I would like to know who has taken money from developers for your campaign? If you have taken it, how much and why?
The short answer, no, I haven't. My campaign's been primarily self-funded, friends and family, and and neighbors. I have not even spoken with the developers. I plan on speaking to the developers, and that's a very simple answer.
My money, I do not have a PAC. I have only my own campaign account. I've taken some money from small-time builders, architects, but as far as major developers, absolutely no money from them. I don't think I have any money from anybody who has any applications pending, or anybody who's had any applications pending in the last 2-3 years as far as property owners. You got to get money from where it comes from, and I've tried to limit mine to family, people that have an interest. You got to wonder why somebody would bundle and give $4,000 to $5,000 to a candidate. I don't have that. I do have several $1,000, and those are from business efficiency experts and people like that. But I don't think anybody that all these are online. Go ahead and take a look. But unfortunately, when I first ran, 7,500 to 12,000 would run you a good campaign, and now we're looking at people that have 60 to 80, probably even $100,000 by the time things are done. I don't have that kind of money.
Okay, my campaign has taken money from residents, family, and friends. I have no developer contributions at all. It would be hypocritical of me to do that, considering my very strong position against high-density development. So I do not take developer money.
Thank you. I am so proud that I have over 200 residents who have contributed to my campaign. To me, that is a grassroots effort. I also have a PAC. It's called Palmetto Bay United, and you probably have already received a mailing from that particular PAC. But I can tell you that I also have in my hand 10 mailers that have been sent out in opposition of Karen Cunningham. When Karen Cunningham wasn't even running for mayor. When Leanne Tellem was running for mayor, this is when all of this began, I think my vice mayor, I'm sorry. This is when all of this began. You've received these two. You can just look at the top corner. You can see the return address for some of them. Do your research. Do your homework. As my colleagues have pointed out, you can easily, that's okay. You can easily go online and check each and every individual's filings as they come out online for the month. And I'm happy to have more conversation about this and about developer dollars.
Thank you. I'm always the candidate that raises the least amount of money. So that happened in 2010 and 2018. So the answer is no. But I do agree with what the mayor says. If you're going to get an email or a mail piece from me, which you will get, it's going to state at the bottom, paid for and approved by Patrick Fiore for Palmetto Bay City Council District 1. Unless something comes from a local homeowners group or a homeowners association that is advocating for me, that's what you're going to get. And so again, as Mr. Jones said, the short answer is no. Thank you.
Next question.
That's okay. I'm leading. Well, I'm going to wade back into the sewers because I found something interesting. The village is going to be paying $2 million to hook up 100 houses to water. Now, water is a whole lot easier to take care of. You don't want to put poop under pressure. You have to have everything run by gravity. So it's a whole lot more expensive. And we were told that, well, we got $12 million. We should be doing sewers. We have 125 miles of roads in the village of Palmetto Bay. As the mayor rightly pointed out, this is going to cost billions of dollars, especially to the two candidates who said we should have sewers. Tell me how much more we have to raise taxes to put the sewers in, and if we need to sell bonds to finance that, how much are people going to have to pay off those bonds to put the sewers in? It's not enough just to point out that here is an idealistic idea that we're going to put out. If you're going to be a hands-on mayor, if you're going to be working on the council, if you're going to be advocating for something like we need to have sewers, tell me how you're going to do it. What's the first step? What's the step after that? What's the step after that? And if not, don't try to sell these people on the idea that you have a solution when you don't even have a grasp of it.
Not a question?
And I'm going to start with that.
Questions?
That's the question. How are you going to do it?
Are you going to pay for the schools?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Cody. Yes, I concur. I'm not going to force people to connect to a sewer. Yes, the septics and there is sea level rise, but everybody who knows me and knows my record, especially monetarily, I'm not going to force people to connect to a sewer line. First of all, the county has jurisdictions. It's Miami-Dade Water and Sewer. It's not Palmetto Bay Water and Sewer. What we're putting in is water mains for the people to connect for drinking water. I know there's new construction in the city, and there is sewers down near 173rd Street and other places. But again, I'm not advocating that because the way things are, I see a price tag way too high, and I don't think we should be forcing people to connect.
So I won't repeat what Councilmember Fiore said, but I will say, as somebody that's on septic, like so many of you, I think a good portion of what we can be doing right now is an education component. How can you keep your septic safe? How can you keep it uncompromised? That's a good interim, as you pointed out, and I pointed out, turning all of Palmetto Bay, over 3,000 some odd homes, from septic to sewer is not going to be possible. We have a small budget in comparison to the county and to big cities. We are the 5th lowest millage rate in all of Miami-Dade County, tied with Pinecrest. So, to your point, if that was something we were going to do, we would have to put something out as like a bond or something like that to the community and let you all decide if this is a top priority. In the meantime, educate yourself, go on the website, the county website, learn more about how you can protect your septic system.
to county initiatives to start to work on this problem. So it's not like we're going to do it in a day or a week or a year, but we need to start on it, and we need to work with the county. We don't have a good relationship with the county. We need to start having a good relationship. My feeling is they would be so delighted because they're taking care of unincorporated septic and sewer. And if we started dealing with them, talking with them, negotiating with them, I suspect that they would be very happy to assist us in starting this program.
Wow. So I guess we're just not gonna do it. No, that's not the way to do it. I have a more can-do attitude. Now, first of all, under past administrations, I have worked with the county to bring water into areas. Why is that important? Because the county paid for that. Why is that important? Because as Dr. Mattson says, we have a very poor relationship right now with Miami-Dade County, one based upon lawsuits rather than working with them. WASA is a county service. We have to work with them to bring it. I don't understand how we can say we're not gonna do it, we can't afford it, it's gonna be billions upon billions, but yet we're doing a study. So I guess that's just more money we can do to do a study and put on a shelf. Or so we can convince ourselves that we can't or won't do it. Look, choices are being made for us. We can either work to get it done or not. And when we bring in WASA, I talked to somebody earlier this week going door to door. You know what? WASA doesn't like to put in sewer lines if you don't have people hook up. And you've got to put a plan in place where you bring these things in. Some of the downtown development has sewer lines and can bring them in. You start working it that way. It's too long a question to give here. Meet up with me. We'll talk about it.
So, I said earlier that I'm on septic, and I'm going to sort of split the difference here. Because I agree, the village can't pay for sewers throughout the entire, to extend the main lines through the entire village. It would be way too expensive. Now, if you want to put a bond out and everyone wanted to work for it, that's one thing. I don't think that's the way to go, because it is a county service. Now, I remember years ago, when my parents took a house in the Keys, the county decided to bring sewers down in the entire Keys, get rid of septic down there, and they had to do that. It was part of that. It was part of that bond. And I don't remember the exact cost of it, but it was extremely expensive. So I do think there's things we can do now while we are working with the county to try and get them to extend it at some point, like education, making sure people know how to use it. There's people in my neighborhood who I've spoken to who haven't pumped their septic tank out in 20 years. They don't even know how to do it. Let's start with that before and work with our partners, the county and everybody else, to make sure that we can get that done effectively and cost effectively.
You have a question?
Yes.
Jonathan trying to.
Who's the question? Or I'll come back to you. Sure. Right here.
So, y'all talk about, or maybe not y'all, but a lot of politicians coming talk about traffic, but it's like math. You got this many cars and this many roads, and you just do the math. What else can you do? That's all. That's my question. What else can you do? What's math?
Which side are we gonna start from?
There you go.
Repeat the question. Talking about math. What are we gonna do with
Repeat the
road cars?
question. The candidates that say, I want to help traffic, what are you gonna do? You got X amount of cars, you're building more houses, you got X amount of roads. Do the math. Ain't nothing gonna change, but you might have a good idea that I'm unaware of.
Well, you're right. It is basic math, right? The more cars you go on the road, it's the more traffic. I mean, just since I've lived here in the last 10 years, it's gotten worse, right? Now, we can do all the traffic studies we want. We can do all the, roundabouts and all the stuff. I don't know if that's, there's no single answer, is what I'm trying to get at. There is no single answer. And I think anyone that tells you that they have a 100% answer that's going to fix it, they're lying to you. There is no 100% answer that's going to fix traffic. There's not, right? And I'm not going to tell you that because it wouldn't be true. What I will say is that there are lots of small things that we can do that holistically will make it better. Not going to fix it, it'll make it better. I think mass transit is one of those things. We have to support mass transit, right? I talked earlier about golf carts. A lot of people love their golf cart, at least in the local community. I think having golf cart parking at the parks will take, if you drive by Corey Park on a Saturday, which way? What if 10% of that was golf carts?
By the way, I was one of the original sponsors of the golf cart. We do need to update that. Yes, it's simple math, but it's not a simple answer. But we have fixes that are still on the table that we worked out with the county. We haven't moved into phase 2 on. You know, we need to get the work done on Old Cutler Road, the roundabouts, the turbo lanes that were supposed to go in there. I'm not sure they're still there. You know, back when it was Peggy Bell, who she and I, when she was mayor of Cutler Bend, we fought head on the bridge. I might have made her bail back then. But we worked hard on things. Now they're going to have 4,000 units going in down there. We need to work with. We're not going to file another lawsuit on that. You know, Pinecrest was the first one to break from the South State Coalition on mass transit. Now we're getting the BRT, and now we find out it's not just a BRT dedicated line, but there's a local bus line on there. So I have a sneaky suspicion that the county is not going to count the local buses to get it up. We need to put in place the traffic fixes we had, and they're still on the table that we're supposed to go in 2019.
Okay, well, traffic, obviously, it's the second biggest problem after development that I've heard on the campaign trail. And the council works a lot on this with traffic calming devices and works with the county on the roundabouts on Old Cutler Road. But I would like to bring up one issue that hasn't been talked about yet, that I think would bring in a huge amount of traffic to Palmetto Bay, and that is bridging the canals. And I'm totally opposed to bridging the canals because it would act as a magnet from the south to bring traffic into Palmetto Bay. There's really no purpose to those bridges, especially 87th Avenue. It ends a mile up from the bridge, potential bridge, and the traffic goes to the same place, US 1 and 82nd Avenue and Old Cutler Road. So bridges are a very important aspect of keeping traffic under control in Palmetto Bay, which is no bridges. We should not have traffic going through, cutting through our neighborhoods.
So with every implementation of traffic or traffic improvement or flow, there is going to be some kind of reaction. These kinds of improvements are directly connected to development. And I'm going to say it again. These improvements are directly connected to development. The council has taken a very strong position in opposition to the bridge, but I don't want to just focus on the bridge. And I've taken a lot of slack for my position on the bridge. And if there is a damaged relationship with our commissioner only, because we have a great relationship with our mayor, it is over the bridge, period. If a bridge is built, which it may happen at some point, and I did want to mention, Mayor Flynn mentioned that we have all of this litigation. We have one piece of active litigation with the council, or with the county, and that is over the bridge, and that is because of two residents. They are the complainants. So every implementation of traffic improvement that we try to implement, and all of those that are on the dockets that have been on there, the circles, they're still there. We're moving forward with the county to try and implement.
John will give you two very short answers. You're not going to get people out of their cars in South Florida. The BRT, I don't, especially with COVID, I don't see that happening. As far as bridging, if you put a bridge over 87, then my concern is you have a bridge over 77, over 175th Street down under 77, and over here at 72nd Avenue. So to me, all that does is destroy neighborhoods, solves nothing.
Okay, they've been standing up here for about 30 minutes. We're going to take a couple more questions, and then we're going to close them out.
So, I'm going to go back to quality of life. to ask previously what the definition of quality of life was. We all gave great answers on what you perceived, what would improve your quality of life, what we thought our quality of life were. But quite honestly, quality of life is relative to the individual. Might improve yours, might not improve mine. So I'm going to use the bridge as an example. I don't want to bring this up. Building the bridge might ruin the quality of life of people above 168, but it might improve Russell's. So it's relative to the individual. So going back on that, what process do you go through as a figure of the community that would make sure that the majority, your decisions improve the majority of the residents' quality of life and not just those you represent?
So I think two things are important with that. One is, I think you do have to start with yourself, right? Because you think you know yourself better than anybody. Start with yourself. What would you think, right? And then take it out to the community, right? And we're a democracy. We have to talk to everybody. And yes, you're right. What might affect me one way is going to affect you a different way. And that's with anything in life. As a business owner, I deal with this every single day, right? If I have to treat different customers, depending on what I'm trying to do, right? I don't argue with them. I don't get into fights with them. If you know me, I'm a very level-headed guy. I want to get everyone's opinion. And at the end of the day, we're a majority rule kind of democracy. If I believe that it's going to affect more people positively, then we should go that way. If it's going to be negative, then we should not do it. But I do think you have to start with yourself and reflect and make sure that you understand both sides of an argument so you can make an educated decision and not just one that's based on personal animus.
Thank you. And you got to sit down and you got to work. We're multi-tiered governments here in Miami-Dade County. We got the feds, not too much. They gave us $12.4 million. We've got the state, they don't do too much. We still have a property insurance problem. But we've got the regional, the South Florida Planning Council, we've got the South Florida Water Management District, we've got the county. And you've got to have good relationships with all of them. And as I said, I think I'm the candidate that has a proven track record of working with them to work on our quality of life. Yes, we've got to sit down. Not everybody is helped equally by the decisions you make. You try to do the best you can. We are a representative democracy here. And you elect leaders to make decisions on you. When you elected me, I never missed a meeting. When you elected me, we made sure that we kept things like the bridge in an understanding, and we worked out alternatives to that. It wasn't just a denial. We worked out alternatives to try to make it go. The unfortunate truth is a lot of those did not go forward since the decision was made, which is why the county changed its mind on the bridge.
Okay, well, in direct answer to your question, we did improve considerably the quality of life in the area in District 3 that was greatly affected by a lot of traffic. We worked to put up no right turn signs during morning rush hour, which was the major problem, and a four-way stop sign to allow people to come and go between different neighborhoods. So we do look forward and we do think about ways that will ameliorate the problems that traffic does. And that's just one example. We spend a great deal of time on helping people with their quality of life. Going door to door is fabulous for finding out what quality of life means to people. And that's what I intend to work on. Very well informed at this point about what people want.
Thank you. I'm going to just double back to comments I made before. It's lower taxes, it's quality of life. It's better public safety. Adding police officers creates better quality of life. It's enhanced parks and services, creates a better quality of life. I agree with Tony in that quality of life usually starts at your driveway, right? If you've got a pothole at the end of your driveway, that's going to bother your quality of life. I think all that we have done over the course of the last 4 years, lowering development, putting in better infrastructure in our village, focusing on public safety, lower crime. Crime is down to 24% from last year and 50% since 2010. I just looked at those numbers today. Everything that this council is doing is to move forward your quality of life. We've surveyed our community. We know what makes you tick. We know what ticks you off. And we kind of plug those things in into a really well thought out budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I think your question is profound. Quality of life is in the eye of the beholder. You could live in Palmetto Bay, but you could live next to a neighbor whose dog is barking all night, who has loud parties all weekend, so your quality of life is crappy. Okay, whereas down the street, your neighbor's quality, it would be better. So quality of life is each individual issue that has to be addressed by your elected officials. And I can only speak for me. If any resident sends me an email, I answer it right away. Many of you who know me. I give out my phone number. People can call me. I may not get you the resolution to that immediate problem with the neighbor with the music, but I will do my best to attempt to resolve it so that your quality of life where you live at that point is good.
Okay. This guy had his hand up. I'm gonna go to you first, and then these are the last three. Okay.
Thank you so much. By the way, I did not brief any candidates on this question. So my question is, the first month after I moved back to Miami after coming from Gainesville was on Key Biscayne, someone was riding their bike and got hit and killed. And I think that every single pedestrian death and cycling death is preventable. And my question is, if you go along Old Cutler Road, you'll see cyclists every Saturday and Sunday. What are y'all going to do to make cycling and other activities outside of a car on our streets and sidewalks safer for everyone?
So first, I'm sorry you came from Gainesville, I'm Florida State, so. there's that. Well, crap. So, cyclists, bicyclists. So no, cyclists they have a legal right to be there. We need to protect the cyclists. At the same time, I know it's a problem. I mean, if you drive on the road, it can become cumbersome. We need to protect them because back to public safety. Make sure we have proper officers stationed and make sure that we are enforcing the laws, right? Not just for the cars, but for the bicyclists. If they're breaking the law, they need to be stopped and ticketed. If cars are breaking the law, getting too close, they need to be stopped and ticketed. We need to enforce our laws, and on the roads that don't have the proper bike lanes, we should look into putting bike lanes in to give everybody the safety and security they need, so everyone can enjoy the roads, not just cars and not just bicycles.
We have an incomplete system. We have a bicycle and pedestrian master plan in 2009. I hear it's being worked on now, but I haven't heard of a single public meeting for it. It seems to be worked on in the dark. I obtained $1 million cap grant for bicycle lanes on 82nd Avenue. That grant originally was denied to exist and it's been turned back, is my understanding. Bicycle lanes are not really for the cyclists, they're for the cars. And I'll tell you why. You don't want bicycles in front of you, you put bike lanes in there, the law says, and stop me officers if I'm wrong, unless they're instructed, they have to use those bike lanes, which means they're not in the way of your vehicle. You can get a ticket for that. And that's a big factor for bike safety. Getting the bicycles out of the path of the cars, giving them a place. Multi-use paths don't work because even a lot of the medical field will say that it puts you in conflict with people that are walking. I had a major accident on a multi-use path on a bike. They're not as safe as they pretend.
Well, recently, the village had a consultant's report on 4 major streets in Palmetto Bay advocating bicycle paths, shared paths, and sidewalks. And I was all in favor. I think shared paths, protected bicycle lanes are very good. I brought this to a discussion that we have called Committee of the Whole, and really, I couldn't get any traction on it at all, but I'm very much in support of bike lanes and the protection of bicyclists, as well as allowing drivers to be able to be safe as well. So I'm all in favor of bike lanes.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what everybody said. It's a great question. Bike lanes, multi-use paths, enforcement. enforcement, all of those things are important, and we, in the village, we want to make sure that things are bicycle and pedestrian safe. I'll use 136th Street as a very good example. A very busy street, there's a multi-use path there. I don't know that it accommodates the biker in Mark, but it accommodates many people making their way on 136th Street. If you're a bicyclist or a pedestrian. So I would say bicycle lanes, multi-use path, enforcement.
Thank you. Yes, I support protecting bike lanes, and I want to touch on something Mr. Jones brought up before. I am working with our golf cart community and working with the county. If that takes more cars off the road, so local residents with golf carts can use them safely and get from one place to another, I think that's another thing that will help. Thank you.
Park on the golf cart at that pizza joint on the highway?
Hey, good evening. I'd like to know what your positions are on the following two topics: the 87th Avenue Bridge and the other bridges, the RTZ, and more specifically, are you for or against both of these items? What is your action plan on both, and what's your timeline to see your action plan through? In a minute.
1 minute. So the RTZ, I think, was a mistake. I don't think that the county should pass out against the RTZ. I think Palmetto should have domain over what's going on in its own borders. I understand the county's argument for it, but I don't think it was the right decision especially for municipalities. Now, as far as the bridge, I hold an unpopular opinion about the bridge. I was for the bridge, right? I live south of the bridge, like we said about quality of life. Some people's issues are different than others, right? But I think the bridge is kind of is water under the bridge. Right? I think now what we need to focus on is the lawsuit with the county and why we're in this lawsuit. We talk about damaging relationships. This is damaging our relationship with the county even further. And when we move forward, whether you're for or against the bridge, I think that the lawsuit itself, when we try to go do something in the future, that lawsuit is going to hinder us. It puts a bad taste in the county's mouth that we're not here to work with them. That they offered to work with us to shut it down, and now we're suing.
My actions and past performance and results speak loudly on where I sit on the bridge. I successfully fought off the bridge. I provided alternatives, working with the county, and those largely were not done. Roundabouts that should have gone in didn't. Lawsuits over 174, that what should have been a traffic circle there that the county was going to pay for, and we're in litigation over that, and litigation that isn't even progressing. That's a shame. RTZ, hey, I may have not spoken at the meeting, but at least I knew the right meetings to go to and speak with people. A lot of lobbying's done in that. What I'm disappointed about is that our South Bay Coalition didn't do any work that involve our residents in taking a unified approach against. The RTC was written by two people. The municipalities through Joe Cordino and Oscar Braden through the county. So we have a seat on the Miami-Dade County League of Cities. Why wasn't that avenue worked harder insofar as creating opposition? And when we met, we would have been clear about what we wanted instead of just saying not as currently written.
Okay, I'm totally opposed to the RTC. It has passed, so we are going, as Palmetto Bay, we are going to work very hard to see that we don't have to change our low density zoning. Work very hard on it. As far as the bridge, hey, I probably wore my no bridge t-shirt to a council meeting. I am absolutely opposed to that bridge. And we just recently had a favorable ruling from a judge regarding the fact that the county's case to dismiss our lawsuit was thrown out. And so we are now being able to continue on. My motto is never done deal. We have to fight for our people and our quality of life.
NDD.
So different times, right? Different decisions have to be made. I know Flynn mentioned in the past, we're in the present right now. I think my vote stands for itself. South. I voted in opposition of the bridge. I've spoken at every meeting, with the exception of that very first meeting that Flynn is referring to, when we were given less than 24 hours notice. The Vice Mayor and I served together on the Miami-Dade League of Cities. We were the only two nay votes for the RTC. That's out of 34 municipalities and probably 60 or 70 board members. The only two votes in opposition to the RTC with the Miami-Dade League. We have done our work, as the councilwoman mentions. We're definitely going to have to move forward with the RTC. I think there's a lot we can manipulate, if you will, there, or work with our manager to see a positive outcome for the village. And she's already mentioned the litigation. I don't want to be bouncing back and forth with that.
Thank you. I'll start with the RTC first. I voted against it. I did ask, I brought it up at the council meeting, I was the first one to mention the words carve out. It did go to the county commission. Our commissioner at the time, it was put in for a carve out, but it was denied. As for the bridge, I go back to my original answer. Destroys neighborhoods, solves nothing. However, I do, I understand the issues on the other side of the canal. We did put the stop signs in at 174 and 87, more as a safety issue to help. But again, it destroys neighborhoods, solves nothing. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, can you guys hear me? Great. So I've heard the term workforce housing, and the reality is that I would love to live in Star Island, but they're not worried about whether or not I can afford to live there. So the fact is that I don't move there if I can't afford it. We need to stop demonizing our properties, their value, and really, in the county level, single-family home has become a very dirty word. And we have to protect that density and what is being built. So the RTC is coming, and if you guys don't know what that means 15 to 25-story buildings being built right here. So I really want to know how you guys are planning to stop, even if it means litigation, high density within our village.
So, if you drive on 184, just across the busway now, I don't know if you've driven down there recently, but there's a massive apartment going up right there. It's on county property, we can't do much about it, but there's a massive building going up there, and with the RTC, they're going to keep going. So we can't stop the RTC on the county side, right? That's county property. What we need to do is enforce our zoning regulations, right? We can't stop every development. Anyone that tells you that, they're lying to you. You can't stop every development. What you can do is have smart zoning and enforce that zoning. If that means changing zoning laws or modifying them, then so be it. But we have to make sure that we enforce the laws that we have, make them better where we can, and again, work with the county so that we can try to limit what they're approving there. It may not solve everything, but it's better than doing nothing. And I mean, whether we like it or not, some of this stuff's coming. And speaking of single-family houses, that apartment complex going up, there's a house right in the middle of it that didn't leave.
I'd love to sit down and talk to you some more on this. How do you do this? How do you stop the county? You work with them, but you know what you do? You come up with a great plan for our downtown area. We worked hard on it. We originally came up with the FT&I, and then under Mayor Stanzik, they got started with the Downtown Redevelopment Task Force, and some great things came about it. And one of the things when we first came into office in 2014, 2015, we voted on a DUV code, which was reduced from some of the things that were planned. But you know what? That won awards. Sustainability awards, walkability, green. We're a green city because of a lot of the codes that I was fortunate enough to work with people to do. Come up with an outstanding plan for our downtown. Again, our vision originally was mixed use, not a 5-story medical building, not turning Franjo Road along with the Children's Hospital into a medical district, but some apartments, some retail, restaurants. You create an outstanding code. The county's not going to want to touch it and ruin it. Come up with a great code. We had an award-winning code.
Well, I think that our zoning law, US1, will withstand the RTC. I think that it will sufficiently satisfy the county. I do believe because we worked so hard on developer conforms with our code. So I'm not as concerned about that now. I mean, they have plenty of territory to cover in unincorporated and in Cutler Bay, and now Pinecrest is going to be doing it. And I think that Palmetto Bay is in a good position today because of all of our hard work on zoning.
20 meetings were not for nothing. Our current code for our downtown area, frankly, it is sustainable. There's a lot of sustainability pieces in our code. I know we looked at that, but our code for the downtown area already meets transit-oriented development. As the county has outlined it. Now, what the county wants for you to do is to build it, because they say eventually, even though they're putting in bus rapid transit, eventually they'll bring you rail. In this case, I would say build it, and then let's see what we're going to do. But that's not what they're going to be working on, right? Right now, we're going to look at bus rapid transit. Maybe we need to be rethinking, as my colleague said, maybe we need to be rethinking transit instead of trying to build in density to accommodate the county's desire for somewhere down the road having rail.
Thank you. That's a very good question, and I'll tell you why. We are hoping that the downtown Palmetto Bay piece suffices within the 2-year limit that the county is giving us to do that. But if it doesn't, the danger is this. Sometimes you have to really get organized like Pinecrest. Because if they take that Home Depot and that's sold to a developer, okay, and then they turn that parking lot around and put it in the back and put a road through there, right across the street from Palmetto Bay, 20 feet away, you're going to have massive condos. You're still at the Home Depot, but all the way in the back. So that's a very good question. And I think everyone needs to be aware of possibilities that could happen.
I'm gonna chain myself to the door at Home Depot.
You'll have some company here.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll bring key.
Palmetto Bay does not employ a lobbyist, so every year council members have to go up to Tallahassee to lobby for Palmetto Bay themselves. If you are re-elected or elected this coming year, what would be your single most important item to speak about in Tallahassee?
Well, I'm happy to go to Tallahassee whenever anybody wants to. In fact, I was going to go this weekend, but I'm going to go back to the septic tanks. I think that's something that we need help from Tallahassee on, we need help from the federal government on because of the cost. Now, again, it's a county issue, but I think if we advocate for septic tanks there, try to get some state dollars, that will help alleviate our budget and help get this done sooner than later.
Thank you. And again, you know, we have been in Tallahassee, we've been in Washington. I remember we spent so much time in Tallahassee in our first councils, we had somebody come and accuse us of going on junkets. Sorry. But I told them, anybody who thinks going to Tallahassee is a junket has never been to Tallahassee. Serious things got done. We brought millions of dollars back to do things like our stormwater, which I think has been beautiful when you think about the rating that we just went through. That wasn't just 1 year work, that's been 20 years of work. Going back though, we need to go back and quality of life. We don't own our homes without property insurance. We've got to go back to Tallahassee on that, maybe even to the feds for federal subsidies of that, like a FEMA type program, like they have for flood insurance. We've got to go to Tallahassee and continue to work with them on stormwater. We got to go on property. There's so much to do, but again, a lot of us have experience in doing that. It doesn't take a professional lobbyist. We've used them, we've been without them. It takes neighborhood people to go up there.
Yes, going to Tallahassee, that's what we do. We have done it, and we will do it. I'm particularly grateful to the state of Florida for giving us $3.2 million in sub-basin funding this year. And thank Representative Vance Lucas for bringing that home to us. So flood control is extremely important in Palmetto Bay, and it would ultimately reduce your property or your flood insurance, that's it, and your flood insurance, and making sure that our homes are protected from flooding is a primary goal of Palmetto Bay, and I'm fine. So yes, I would go up there and talk primarily about more sub-basin and
guys in Palmetto Bay has worked on together, whether or not we've had lobbyists or haven't had lobbyists. As the councilwoman mentioned, $3.2 million. Key in getting money from Tallahassee is having a plan and having a design. I'm very grateful to our current manager. We dedicated dollars so that we're able to have design for all of our sub-basin projects upcoming. The $3.2 million will go to sub-basin projects in our village. Insurance premiums are off, they're out of this world right now. One of the things we've done here locally is to work on our CRS. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. In April, those of you that are renewing your flood insurance should see a 5% decrease. That's policy that I initiated and also was supported by the council. So lots of policy and then money.
Thank you. You don't have to time me on this. Homeowners insurance premium, that's it. Because if we don't get some type of reform in the homeowners insurance market, we can't afford to live it. Escrow keeps going up, keeps going up, keeps going up. You'll be selling your home for top dollar, which is good. And you have to go to a place where that's cheaper. We need homeowners insurance reform.
Mr. Chin, did you have asked a question? You have to really.
I always find this idea of uniting school bus to pick up kids within the 2 mile radius, because that will take a lot of time of parents. In the road, if you have 3 kids in 3 different schools, that removes 6 kids of the parents driving back and forth. That removes a lot of cost. So my question is, do you think it's a good idea? And if you get the electric, what can you do to push this through?
So as a father of 2 young children who both go to public school, my youngest daughter goes to Bryan Elementary, and my oldest daughter just got into Macon Southwood, so she's going Southwood. Both of them are not eligible for school buses. My youngest daughter, I still think she's a little bit too young, but my oldest daughter, I would love to put on a school bus. But we are literally, I think, 1.9 miles away, no school bus. I have no option. So working with the school board to try and get more kids on school buses that are safe and effective. The other thing is, a lot of parents don't want to put their kids on school buses. It's a safety issue. And quite frankly, we can't walk to school because it's just not safe either. Sidewalks, traffic, been through the whole gamut, right? So working with the school board to try and increase school bus access, I think would be a good idea. Because I personally would use it, and I think a lot of parents would use it if it was safe and effective and something that was actually a doable thing. Right now, I think I've got more on the school board, but I think it's something that we should definitely talk to them about.
We have a gentleman sitting in the audience here, Robert Mazzelli, who tried to work out a plan with other people as far as premium bus service to bring kids along and reduce the traffic. That didn't get a lot of traction, and it should have. Part of the problem comes in, though, that you have, what is it going to take to get your kid on that bus? We all want to get everybody else's kid on that bus, but what does it take? And I remember working with our school compact committees and the school board was working on a shared ride program. A lot of programs come in, but we haven't found that, or the school hasn't found that yet, that what gets those kids into a shared system to reduce the traffic. So that's the answer. I think in trying to meet with the parents, the people that are invested. Remember, the neighborhood school concept is gone. People go all over the county now for school. And the only time the mass transit works is going to New World or that. But we'll talk about it.
And Teo, I know exactly what you're talking about. When school is in recess, we don't have much traffic. And I know that school traffic contributes enormously to our traffic problem. And I remember in past days, especially soon after I was first elected, when I met with the education committee, and we talked about having dedicated school buses that picked up kids especially. This was a kind of a radical idea in Cutler Bay because a lot of people are coming from Cutler Bay and sending their kids to our schools. So we talked about that, but it didn't get anywhere. This is a problem, as others have said, with the school board. So my advocacy would be with our school board member and see what she can do for us, because I know it's a problem.
Thanks, Mr. Chen. It is a great idea. I think you've heard some of the challenges already. I don't want to echo those, but I would say you have a great resource in our Education Advisory Board. One of the things I'm extremely proud of is the relationship that we have with our schools, not only within the community, but the greater community. One of the things we're working on right now is looking at every school, because traffic patterns have changed. Children and parents aren't allowed to go into the schools together anymore. So we're seeing long lines of backup, not only at our public schools, but at our private schools. So we're working on some of the traffic pattern changes, and I would definitely say bring that to the Education Advisory Board. The Vice Mayor is the current liaison for that, and Diane Quick is the chair of that board, and the school district is at every single one of those meetings.
Difficult, not impossible. I think, again, it's all been stated, we need to work with the school board for anything, if we'll get more cars off the road and help these kids.
Hold that thought. 30 seconds, why should we vote for you? Hand it to the next guy. Yeah.
Well, again, I've served this community for 8 years. I want to continue to serve. This will be my final election. Again, as I said, if we're successful for District 1, I have some things I want to finish. I've talked about the golf carts. One of the things I want to do is retool our permit process, because you shouldn't really need a permit for a lot of stuff you're doing in your home. Okay? That should be on you. So that's something I want to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a proven track record. I've been on the council for 8 years. I have the support of many great people in the community and many organizations, including the teachers, the professors, and yesterday, PBA, thank you, PBA and the police for your support. I encourage you to go back and use the QR code that's back there, and Chess, it will take you to a site where you can see all the residents that are currently supporting you. See if they're your neighbors. Talk with them. And I would love to have more conversation. I'm super accessible, 305-799-0695.
All right, I'm a resident. I'm all about residents. If you ever watch council meetings, I'm always talking about residents in terms of how a particular item or resolution or ordinance affects residents. Absolutely, I'm very serious about what I do. I love it. It's a privilege to serve. And I take pride in being an independent thinker on council. I don't go along to get along. I raise questions, I challenge, and I want residents to know what is going on. I absolutely believe in open government. And oh, by the way, I do a lot of constituency service. That means you can write me, email me, call me, and I follow up with you and try to solve your problem.
Thank you. And I too have a proven track record. Government light. All our codes, different things have come out of hundreds of meetings and charrettes where residents have been involved. We're not looking backwards, we're looking forward. I want to go ahead and use the tools that we have, such as Zoom, the virtual platforms, to increase participation and get people commenting on things. I'm going to get rid of that administrative variance. I don't like to see things like the 480 that the council kicked the can down the road 3 times on, show off as an administrative thing. Keep it in the public.
So, 30 seconds, right? It's kind of fast. So, why should you vote for me? Well, quite frankly, because I'm not a government official. I'm one of you. I'm a business guy. I spend my day at my office solving problems. That's what I do. Right? I'm also here, I said it before, I'll say it again, for those 2 girls back there. Keep Palmetto Bay moving in the right direction. Stop with the infighting, stop with the lawsuits, stop with all the stuff that doesn't help, and move Palmetto Bay forward and solve problems.
Don't go anywhere. Young ladies, come on up here.
truly love the pictures. Get in there.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Was this recorded?
What?
Was this